China's unscrupulous gold rush to Russia has faced difficulties and extortion from police, horse bandits, and corrupt customs officials, with a dangerous future ahead. Young university Russian teacher Fang Yongzhi resigned from school and met a wandering boy named Shi Lei in Manchuria, where he adopted him as his adopted son. Afterwards, the father and son traveled to Russia together. Chinese tycoons such as Fang Yongzhi, Lin Qiangqiang, Song Liming, and Jiang Xinzhou have sparked a wave of Chinese business in Russia. The turbulent sea reveals the true essence of heroism, and the Green Mountains stand tall without falling into the clouds. Chinese tyrants fought against Russia, creating a historical legend of a generation of Chinese people exploring and advancing in foreign lands. Chapter 1. Introduction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On December 26, 1991, the Union of Soviet Socialist Federative Republics officially dissolved, and the once glorious Soviet Empire was buried in the long river of history. At the same time, the Russian Federation declared independence and became the only successor to the Soviet Union. The new government abandoned the original planned economy system, fully embraced the market economy, and imitated the shock therapy of Western economics, consecutively proposing 3 steps of economic reform: loosening prices, tightening currency, and privatizing enterprises. For a while, the economy stagnated, prices skyrocketed, the ruble depreciated wildly, and the purchasing power of residents sharply declined. As the foremost issue of clothing, food, housing, and transportation, the issue of clothing has become a major problem in Russian society. On the one hand, the shelves of department stores are filled with a dazzling array of Western goods, but few people pay attention, and the expensive prices are daunting. On the other hand, there are very few affordable and down-to-earth domestic products, making it difficult to find a trace. Light industrial products, especially daily necessities such as clothing, shoes, and hats, are very scarce. At this time, China is in the second decade of reform and opening up, with a prosperous economy, thriving life, and a wide range of products. High-quality and affordable Chinese products can perfectly fill the domestic light industry product market in Russia. Almost overnight, Chinese goods captured Russia in one fell swoop, and Chinese merchants flocked to Russia to seek gold. These Chinese businessmen who venture into Russia are known as Chinese thugs. From entering Russia in 1992 to the closure of the Moscow market in 2009, for nearly 20 years, countless Chinese people had dreams of becoming wealthy and worked hard and ventured into Russia. At its peak in Moscow alone, there were over 100,000 Chinese people, including domestic individual businesses, intellectuals, workers, veterans, farmers, students, and unemployed individuals. They come from different fields, industries, and from all corners and directions of the motherland. They use their hard-working hands, thin bodies, hard sweat, thin shoulders, and strong willpower to persevere, endure humiliation, not be afraid of difficulties, hardships, and sacrifices, composing a historical legend of Chinese people exploring and advancing in foreign lands. Moscow doesn't believe in tears. What is it? Blurred my eyes, covering my haggard state. Moscow doesn't believe in tears. I fell down, get up again, keep going, don't worry about the hardships and tiredness. Moscow has no tears, awakening from drunkenness and shattered dreams, we already have no way back. Dedicated to the Chinese fallen men who once fought in Russia. The names in the text are all pseudonyms. If there are any similarities, it is purely a coincidence. Author introduction. On September 13, 1993, I took Air China Flight CA909 from the capital airport to Moscow. After staying overnight in Moscow, I took a train to St. Petersburg the next night and enrolled in St. Petersburg University of Mining for further studies. After 1 year of further education, he joined the business world and became a member of the army of corrupt officials in Russia and China, working for 5 years. In these 5 years, I have witnessed firsthand the ups and downs of Chinese products in Russia, from low-quality disposable travel shoes and chicken feather clothing to well-crafted fur coats and high-end leather jackets that combine fur and fur. Chinese products have achieved a leapfrog update and gradually reversed their reputation in Russia. In the past 5 years, Chinese businessmen who came to Russia have changed one after another, with both successful and unsuccessful individuals. Behind each success story is the bitterness and tears of the hardworking, and behind each failure case is also the relentless pursuit and perseverance of the hardworking. Millions of Chinese people have brought light and heat to the cold Russia, injecting bright colors into the lives of Russians. China's fallen master has created a historical legend that will forever be enshrined in the treasure trove of Chinese history. After returning to my home country, I have always wanted to write about the struggles of these Chinese people, but unfortunately I have not had the time. Starting today, I will write these experiences in the form of novels for everyone to read, appreciate, and savor. Love Only Brain Juice, written at noon on December 1, 2022 in Shenyang. Chapter 2. Confusion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It was already noon when Fang Yongzhi walked out of the funeral home. He hasn't dripped since yesterday morning. But he couldn't feel any hunger. He was like a zombie, with only one shell left, and his soul seemed to have died. At this moment, he didn't know how much he despised himself. It would be great if the person who died wasn't her, but himself. Yes, damn it, it's Fang Yongzhi, a weak lung. You are such a big man that you are willing to let your wife ride a tricycle to sell bread. If you don't ride that old bike, maybe there won't be a car accident. If there weren't a car accident, your wife wouldn't have died. Fang Yongzhi, are you still a man? Fang Yongzhi's intestines have turned blue with regret. He regrets leaving his wife to do business alone. But my wife is dead and I can never come back. Regretting it is not worth it. The distance from the funeral home to the entrance of the cemetery was only a few hundred meters, but Fang Yongzhi walked for more than 10 minutes. His uncle and aunt had been waiting at the door for a long time. When they saw Fang Yongzhi coming, they called a taxi and asked him to go together. But Fang Yongzhi waved his hand and refused. He has no face to see his wife's family, he is afraid to see them. He cannot face his elderly parents-in-law. Uncle and his brother took a taxi and left Fang Yongzhi standing alone at the entrance. His legs were too weak to support, so he collapsed to the ground. How did I get to where I am today? His mind was filled with chaos. Damn it, it's all this damn Russian. When the two words Russian flashed through his mind, he was going crazy. If I had scored a few more points in the college entrance examination, perhaps I had studied English. If it were today, even if I couldn't go to the United States, I could at least go to a decent foreign trade company. I can't imagine how beautiful it would be. Dressed in suits and leather shoes, resembling a social celebrity, or shuttling through major social venues, dancing gracefully in the bustling lights, wine, and greenery, or sitting in the writing room, drinking coffee comfortably while chatting and laughing with foreigners, signing contracts one by one while enjoying the wine. Of course, you can also travel around the world and fly back and forth in the sky by plane. Every month with a decent salary, living a carefree life, I always think about how to beautify my nose bulb, but Fang Yongzhi accidentally fell into the trap of Russian and entered the Russian department of a university, majoring in Russian. From then on, life entered a dark era. Men are afraid of entering the wrong profession, and women are afraid of marrying the wrong spouse. That's a good point. Let's talk about dating partners. They are comprehensive universities that attract a lot of girls, who are both pure and beautiful. However, when it comes to dating, when they listen to Russian majors, they all dislike them and keep them at a distance. Don't say that other departments don't like it, even girls majoring in Russian don't want to find boys in the same field. Who should be blamed for the tragic decline of Russian to today's level? Once upon a time, the big brother of the Soviet Union had endless scenery. In the early days of the October Revolution, the sound of a cannon brought us Marxism-Leninism. The Soviet Union suddenly became prominent in the hearts of the Chinese people, attracting them to worship and pay homage. In the 1950s, the Soviet Union entered a honeymoon period, and Soviet films became so popular in China that they became confused. Lenin in October, and Lenin in 1918 attracted countless Chinese audiences. Soviet music is also widely spread in China. Some Chinese people don't know how to hum songs such as Evening on the Outskirts of Moscow, Katyusha, and Red Plum Blossoms. In the late-night garden quiet everywhere only the wind is gently shaking. Not only the songs, but also the most impressive ballet of the Soviet Union has captivated a large number of Chinese people. Tchaikovsky's ballet, Swan Lake, has been performed in Beijing, and one ticket can sell for a sky-high price of buying a Shanghai permanent brand bicycle. You should know that watches, bicycles, and sewing machines were the three major luxury items in Chinese life at that time. The fire in the Soviet Union, the fire in Russia, was in a mess. But later on, it seemed like there was no more. As the two major political camps of the East and the West entered the Cold War, the Soviet Union completely decoupled from developed Western countries in terms of economy and technology, and from then on, the Soviet economy began a free-fall decline. The planned economy system that had long been practiced in the Soviet Union had brought serious consequences to this old socialist country due to its rigidity and singularity. The whole society lacked vitality and innovation, and individual values were overshadowed by the collective honor. Human personality and creativity were erased, and the pursuit of material wealth was regarded as a shameful thing. Soviet writer Valery Alexeyev wrote in his book Home at Home, that in Moscow, the phrase, "this person will make money," is used to describe a person who is not very upright. If you say, "he's worth 1.5 million rubles, no Moscow person you know would think it's praising someone. If anyone says to a Moscow woman, "you look worth 150,000 rubles today," she will be both angry and surprised. Blindly pursuing egalitarianism and pursuing a big pot of rice ultimately led to the death of the Soviet Union. The disintegration of the Soviet Union and the fall of Russia ultimately led to Russian becoming a minor language, with no one interested in poor countries and only developed countries in people's eyes. Poor in the bustling city with no one to ask, rich in the deep mountains with distant relatives. People are like this, and so is the country. 30 years in the East and 30 years in the West, things are unpredictable. If you have to blame yourself, you can only blame yourself for being careless when you first applied for a major. Fang Yongzhi took out a box of mass production from his pocket, took out one, and lit it for himself. He didn't originally smoke, but overnight, he became addicted to smoking. What ignites is a cigarette, but what inhales is filled with loneliness. Chapter 3. Resignation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fang Yongzhi doesn't know where to go now. Is he going home? He already has no home. Without Lin, the family would have already dispersed. But where can he go? Fang Yongzhi thought of his mother in the countryside thousands of miles away. Among his 7 brothers and sisters, he was the only one who came out of the countryside with the college entrance examination. Fang Yongzhi has always been the pride of his mother from childhood to adulthood. If his mother knew that Lin had left and she was living aimlessly, she would definitely be sad. He apologized for his mother's countless days and nights of companionship. In order to focus on studying, my mother never slept soundly. Phoenix man, it's difficult for rural phoenixes to fly. Fang Yongzhi slowly stood up and grew much older overnight, with wrinkles all over his face. He hunched his waist, like an old man in his 50s. But he's only 30 years old, 30 years old. As soon as he stood firm, a red cherry taxi stopped beside him. This place is a bit far from the city center, with few buses, and most people take a taxi back to the city. The driver poked his head out of the window, clearly waiting for Fang Yongzhi to board the car. Fang Yongzhi didn't even look, left the driver behind, and walked straight towards the distant road. There is a private bus leading to the city there. Although the waiting time for the car is a bit long, there are still cars available. For him, who is poor and destitute, saving money is the hard truth. Walking to the roadside, the bus happened to come over. Fang Yongzhi waved his hand and the car came to a stop. He paid 1 yuan and got on the car. Find a chair to sit down. Just as he sat down, something pricked his buttocks, causing him to quickly stand up in pain. The seat was broken, and the broken plastic sheet exposed sharp bristles, which stabbed his buttocks fiercely. He changed his seat and sat down to see if there was any damage. He wanted to quietly squint for a while. Fang Yongzhi thought that his days were like this old car, really shabby. The past is unbearable to look back on. The new down jacket he was wearing on his first date with Lin was borrowed from a colleague on the spot. After getting married, he never bought any new clothes and wore a green military uniform every day. In winter, he wore a cotton jacket made by his old mother. On the night of the wedding, there was no bridal chamber, let alone candles. He played with Lin on the iron bed of the single dormitory all night, saying, "Long drought brings sweet rain, it meets old friends in its hometown, bridal chamber candles, and the time of winning the gold medal is so beautiful." However, Fang Yongzhi did not enjoy the joy of the wedding at all. "I worked as a teacher in college for several years, with a pitifully low salary and nothing saved up. I have been married for several years, and my wife still lives in her mother's house, while I am still living in a single dormitory, struggling to survive. If she had a house and a little more income, Lin wouldn't sell bread. If. Damn it, after spinning around and returning to if, there is no if in the world. Thinking about it is all tears. When I was single, I looked forward to getting married, but after getting married, I realized that life was even more difficult. Talking 1,000 words, it's still poverty that causes trouble. Poverty is the foremost evil. Poor couples mourn for 100 days. Poverty has harmed both myself and Lin. Before, Fang Yongzhi hated money the most. When it came to money, he felt dirty. He was noble, how could he associate with money? But in this era where everything is focused on money, it's really difficult to move without money. It is said that money is not everything, but without money, it is absolutely impossible. Fang Yongzhi hates himself for not having money and not even being able to support his wife. This damn money, money is not a good thing, but it's not enough without it. Fang Yongzhi couldn't remember how he got back to the dormitory. When I woke up the next day, the sky was already filled with morning clouds outside the window. Life will continue, and tomorrow the sun will still rise. No matter what kind of crying you experienced last night, this city is still bustling with traffic when you wake up in the morning. No matter whether you drive happily or not, this city has no time to wait for you. Fang Yongzhi dressed neatly, changed his lethargy from yesterday, and walked towards the school. He has made up his mind to resign, yes, just today, right now. Fang Yongzhi patted his forehead and rubbed his eyes, wondering if he was crazy. You idiot, it's not cerebral palsy, it's also cerebral hypoxia. It's not appropriate to have an enviable university teacher, isn't it? It's not a disease, it's a serious illness. But who understands the pain in their own hearts? If he continues like this, he is going crazy. Rather than living with impotence, it's better to die arrogantly and firmly. The good man is ambitious and determined to venture outside, even if he gets hit and breaks his head, he is willing to do so. It's okay, I'm only 30 years old and have plenty of time to squander. Fang Yongzhi secretly cheers for himself in his heart. Fang Yongzhi found the director of the Russian language teaching and research office and explained the purpose of his visit. Compared to the popular English teaching and research room, the Russian teaching and research room is more like a matchmaker, with the suspicion of making up the numbers, so it doesn't matter if there is one more person or one less. So the director readily agreed to his resignation request. Fang Yongzhi originally thought that the director would try to persuade him to stay, but he didn't expect the leader to release him so decisively, which disappointed him a bit. It seems that he has overestimated himself. Without stopping, he left the teaching and research office and went straight to the personnel department. The director is an old man in his 60s, with a bright light shining above his head and a sparse circle of hair hanging below his head. The people in charge of human affairs are all among the best, otherwise they would say they are extremely intelligent. The old man usually behaves well and does not speak or smile. When Fang Yongzhi said he would resign, he looked forced. He couldn't figure it out. Many people sharpened their heads and wanted to come in and grab this iron rice bowl, but some were willing to give up. The people outside the city want to enter, the people inside the city want to come out, and the world is so incredible. The director saw that Fang Yongzhi had made up his mind and no longer tried to persuade him to stay, so he immediately approved his resignation application. When handling the resignation procedures, Fang Yongzhi met his colleague Lin Hai. The two are classmates in college, but their circumstances are vastly different. Lin Haixing comes from a family of officials, with a privileged background, unlike Fang Yongzhi, who is a poor loser. After graduation, both of them were assigned to teach Russian at this university, transforming from classmates to colleagues. Previously, the relationship between the two was particularly close. Since Fang Yongzhi proposed to borrow money from Lin Hai to buy a house, their relationship began to distance and eventually ended in an unhappy breakup, like an enemy. Of course, Fang Yongzhi ultimately did not buy his house. There are many ways to destroy friendship, and the most thorough one is to borrow money. Previously, Fang Yongzhi did not believe it, but now he completely believes it. Upon learning that Fang Yongzhi had resigned, Lin Hai pretended to be surprised. In fact, the underlying message in his heart was finally getting rid of this poor ghost, and finally no one to disturb him. Fang Yongzhi smiled at Lin Hai and didn't say anything. He doesn't know what to say because he has fallen into the dust. Apart from inferiority, there is really nothing to show off. In less than a day, the resignation procedures were completed, and now he is free. Chapter 4. Manzhouli. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Stepping out of the school gate, Fang Yongzhi looked bewildered. He originally thought he would feel a little easier after resigning, but now he can't relax at all. He quit his job before he found a job, isn't it a bit reckless and hasty? But only by cutting off the road can there be a way out. How can success be achieved without the courage of a brave man to break his wrist? Never regret, Fang Yongzhi was not convinced in his heart. Returning to the dormitory, he began to tidy up his things. After getting married, he didn't add any decent items anymore, and the suitcase he used to have when he was in school is still preserved. He packed his belongings and put them in a suitcase. Then, carrying a suitcase, he walked out of the gate of the singles dormitory building. Get up from wherever you fall. I really don't believe it, our Yongzhi will be unlucky for a lifetime. Fang Yongzhi's next stop is Manzhouli. He is going to Russia for an adventure. He arrived at the train station, where there was a sea of people. In order to buy a train ticket, many people built bunks overnight in the ticket hall. The train tickets for the day of going to Manzhouli were already sold out, so Fang Yongzhi had to buy high-priced tickets from scalpers. It's okay to be exploited by the boss, after all, the boss pays himself a salary, but being slaughtered by a scalper makes Fang Yongzhi feel unwilling. These guys who make money by exploiting policy loopholes should all be sent to the border to farm, Fang Yongzhi cursed bitterly in his heart. However, he forgot one thing. Existence is reasonable. Ticketing is not the fault of scalpers, it is a product of the development of the times. After buying a ticket, Fang Yongzhi walked to the newsstand at the station square. He first called his father-in-law and said he was on a business trip to Manzhouli, but of course, he concealed his resignation. His father-in-law has always been very kind to him, reminding him to pay attention to safety over the phone. He dropped the phone and bought a copy of China Youth Daily. Opening the newspaper, a line of striking headlines caught his eye. You can earn a Mercedes-Benz in a week by going to Russia to exchange goods. Fang Yongzhi smiled, as if seeing a cool Mercedes-Benz slowly approaching him. It was already evening when the train arrived in Manzhouli. He carried his suitcase and walked out of the station with the flow of people. On the train, Fang Yongzhi learned that a travel agency in Manzhouli was handling a 3-day trip to Russia. It's getting late now, the top priority is to find a place to stay first, and it's not too late to contact the travel agency tomorrow. Standing at the station square, Fang Yongzhi remembered the scene he had when he reported to university. That was his first time traveling, and on that day, he carried an admission letter and went to the school alone to report. I stood on the train for 17 hours, and when I arrived in Harbin, it was also so dark. The classmates who picked up the station have already dispersed. So he carried his suitcase and walked alone to school. He is so stubborn by nature that he never asks anyone for anything he can do on his own. The suitcase he was carrying at the time was the one he is currently carrying. Life is truly a great irony. With the cycle of heaven, he once again carried his old suitcase to explore a foreign land. Fang Yongzhi's first visit to Manzhouli was both unfamiliar and fresh to this city. There are several Russian-style small buildings in front of the station, which are old and weathered, seemingly telling the story of the rise of this small city from scratch. Fang Yongzhi loves architecture with a sense of time, whether it's Russian, German, or Japanese, including ancient Chinese architecture, he can't put it down. If in the past, he would step forward and touch each building with his own hands, exploring the historical traces and heritage of each building, and feeling the designer's thoughts and soul. But now he is poor and destitute, lost in soul, and no longer has that elegance and mood. Manzhouli used to be a restricted area where outsiders were not allowed to enter. It was only after the thawing of Sino-Soviet relations that we began to open up to the outside world. This city is not big, with only a population of over 20,000. However, with the opening of the China-Russia border, people have suddenly increased. People come and go from south to north, with blonde hair and blue eyes, speaking a southern and northern tone, and speaking foreign languages. The flow of people has activated trade, transportation, logistics, tourism, commerce, and real estate, and the city has flourished unprecedentedly. On the train, when the kind-hearted neighbor gets off the train, they don't forget to remind them that the security in Manzhouli is not good, and they need to be extra careful everywhere. Fang Yongzhi is a bit uneasy. My eyelids started to twitch, as if something was about to happen, which was not a good omen. Chapter 5. Police Station. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fang Yongzhi saw the guesthouse next to the station at a glance. After starting work, he went on several business trips and stayed at the reception center each time. In the era of planned economy, almost all government agencies, enterprises and institutions had guesthouses, and the status of guesthouses was very important. Generally, the word state-owned was added in front of the guesthouse to show its authority. If the word foreign guest was added before it, it would be even more impressive. Its reputation was comparable to a friendship store, not only tall but also very stylish. For those in lower positions, they should not think about it. In order to enter a foreign guesthouse, besides foreigners, Chinese people must be senior officials. When the planned economy withdrew and the market economy surged, the status of guesthouses declined day by day. Guesthouses have almost become synonymous with cheap accommodation, and their former sacred status has been replaced by hotels, guesthouses, hotels, etc. For Fang Yongzhi, what he values more now is economic affordability, and fame and so on are just floating clouds. He carried a suitcase and prepared to spend the night at the guesthouse. "Stop, stop for me!" Someone shouted loudly behind Fang Yongzhi. Fang Yongzhi's heart tightened, it seemed that his eyelids were twitching for a reason just now. "Are you calling me?" Fang Yongzhi turned around and looked left and right, as if calling out to him, but not like that. A boy flew past him. Two police officers were closely chasing after each other, much like the scene in the Japanese movie Chase, where the police were chasing fugitive Duchio. Pull, pull, pull. The familiar melody seems to have returned. At some point, a group of onlookers emerged from the station square. Fang Yongzhi hates watching the excitement, which is completely different from others. Most people on the street only see a little trouble. Even if two people are arguing, they should stop and observe, and even stand on the side discussing and pointing the way. If you see a car accident, it's even more exciting. It seems like it's not a car accident, it's a big show going on, and the accident is just a warm-up. When Fang Yongzhi encounters such a situation, he often makes a question mark in his mind. Can I help with this matter? If so, then go up and help. If not, it's like what TV commercials say. As far as our thoughts go, we can roll as far as we can. 36 strategies are superior. The scene in front of me must be the police catching the thief. I can't help myself, so hurry up and leave. Fang Yongzhi walked quickly towards the guest house, carrying a suitcase. Uncle, help me quickly. A young man blocked Fang Yongzhi's path and hugged him tightly. He is the young man who ran past Fang Yongzhi just now. It's not a disaster, it's a disaster that cannot be avoided. What should come always comes. Fang Yongzhi was momentarily confused by the sudden situation. Who is this teenager? How did he know that I could help him? Fang Yongzhi's dormant brain cells were instantly activated and quickly began to operate. Tell uncle quickly, what's wrong with you? Why are the police chasing you? Uncle, I'm not a thief, I'm not a thief. The boy spoke incoherently and started crying loudly. The thin shoulders of the frightened young man began to shake violently in Fang Yongzhi's arms. Two police officers ran over panting heavily. Without saying a word, pull the boy and handcuff him up. Are you the father of the child? The fat police officer among them looked at Fang Yongzhi suspiciously. No, it's not. Fang Yongzhi hesitated and stuttered. You're not manly enough, you can't even admit to your own child. Listen up, he just stole his wallet, and he's probably going to be detained in the juvenile detention center for a few days. Let's go, as a parent, you also have to accompany your child to handle the procedures. The skinny police officer spoke from the side, with a hint of authority in his tone. Fang Yongzhi spoke of suffering. He had intended to explain it well, but when he saw the child's pleading gaze, he swallowed it back. I'm not a thief, I'm not a thief. The young man cried loudly and refused to get into the police car. Whether to steal or not, go to the police station and defend yourself. The police car roared away, pulling Fang Yongzhi and the young man. Alright, you said you didn't steal, why is that lost wallet right under your feet? At the police station, the fat police officer put on an interrogative posture. The uncle who lost money found his wallet stolen, so he went after the thief. The thief saw that he was not doing well and threw his wallet at my feet. Thieves are very cunning. When they find the victim chasing them, they often throw the stolen wallet at someone else, blaming others to distract the attention of the victim and the police, and fight for a chance to escape for themselves. Chapter 6. Little Stones. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since you didn't steal the money, where did you run? At the police station, the police relentlessly questioned the young man. I was very scared when I saw you chasing after me. That thief is about my age and looks similar to me. I'm afraid you'll take me as a thief. What evidence do you have to prove that you didn't steal the wallet? This. The boy took out a train ticket and took the same train as Fang Yongzhi. I sat for 2 days and 2 nights, except for peeing, I stayed in my seat and didn't go anywhere. The young man defended himself in a low voice. Empty words without evidence, who can testify for you? The fat man questioned the young man. Police uncle, the people in the car can testify for me. I really didn't steal. The people in the car have already left, you said it's useless. The fat man was a bit impatient and his tone appeared very cold. What kind of person is he from you? He's your father. The fat man looked at the boy and then turned his gaze to Fang Yongzhi. No, it's not. The young man dared not lie, so he had to answer truthfully. Fang Yongzhi was very unhappy on the side. Am I that old? He's not your father, why are you pulling his clothes and seeking help from him? Are you guys accomplices? Two police officers scanned both Fang Yongzhi and the young man with sharp eyes. Fang Yongzhi felt that he was even more unjust than Do Yi, and he couldn't get in touch with an explanation. Police uncle, I was abducted and sold. The boy wanted to say that I was a child who was abducted and had nothing to do with this uncle, but when he was in a hurry, he only said the first half of the sentence. Being abducted and trafficked. The two police officers exploded upon hearing this. Two pairs of eyes fiercely shot at Fang Yongzhi, as if he were a human trafficker. Police officer, don't misunderstand. I don't know this child at all. Fang Yongzhi explained anxiously with a pale face, as he couldn't organize his words due to nervousness. Young man, what exactly is trafficking like you just mentioned? Police uncle, I was abducted from the south to Hunan when I was a child. A few days ago, I escaped from my foster parents' house and had nowhere to go. I heard that working in Manchuria is relatively easy, so I came here. Just now, you chased me, and I was scared for a moment, so I stopped this uncle. I think this uncle is a good person, he can help me. I don't want to go to the juvenile detention center, I'm afraid. The boy started crying again. Comrade, could you please show me your ID card? Fang Yongzhi took out his ID card and handed it to the fat man. Are you coming from Shenyang? What are you doing in Manchuria? I resigned from my job and came out to explore. I plan to do business in Russia. The police officer pondered for a moment and said, so, this child has nothing to do with you anymore. The child couldn't help but be scared. It's probably someone else who stole the wallet. Well, this child is still young and running around can easily lead to bad behavior. Why don't you take him away and discipline him well? Otherwise, he might become a useless person in the future. Sorry, you can leave now. The intelligence of the police is really impressive. Such a tricky matter has been pushed clean and resolved invisibly. The boy looked at Fang Yongzhi with hopeful eyes, as if saying, Uncle, take me away. Fang Yongzhi didn't expect to find a child on his first day in Manchuria. He didn't know whether he should be happy or sad. Thanks to the police, Fang Yongzhi pulled the boy out of the police station. There happens to be a guest house not far away. Fang Yongzhi pulled the young man into the room. The receptionist at the front desk was a little girl, and Fang Yongzhi took out his ID card and handed it to her. The girl is making records one by one in the registration book. May I ask your contact number? Fang Yongzhi was momentarily stunned. He had resigned and the school and single dormitory numbers no longer belonged to him. He thought for a moment and filled in his father.in.law's phone number. After registration, I paid the deposit, took the key, and walked upstairs with a small stone. There are no windows in the room, and as soon as you enter, it becomes dark. Fang Yongzhi turned on the light. The room was not too big, there were 2 beds, that's enough. After sitting on the train for more than 10 hours, Fang Yongzhi was already hungry. Looking at that young man again, he was staring straight at himself, probably he was also starving. Young man, what's your name? Shi Lei. For stones, they're really hard enough. Fang Yongzhi smiled. He liked names with stones, which symbolize hardness and tenacity. When he sees stones, he will associate them with pine trees in the crevices of the rocks. Bite on the green mountains without relaxing, Tachibana is in the broken rock. Even after thousands of grinding and hitting, it is still strong. Ren air has winds from east, west, north, and south. He likes rocks and pine trees. Shi Lei, how about uncle calling you little stone in the future? Shi Lei looked at Fang Yongzhi somewhat flattered and nodded. Alright, little stone, let's go eat now. Chapter 7. Abduction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fang Yongzhi brought a small stone to the small restaurant next to the guest house. Little stone, what do you want to eat? Mantu, cakes, whatever. The little stone no longer panicked, and its gaze softened. Where's the dish? Do you like it spicy? Fang Yongzhi is gentle and pleasing, like the father of a small stone. Little stone blinked his eyes and nodded. Fang Yongzhi asked for a spicy hot bean curd and a fried meat with celery. He didn't know Xiaoshi's preference, so he had to bet. One was hot, the other was not. There would always be one Xiaoshi likes. He brought himself a bowl of rice and asked Xiaoshi for 3 mantu. Little stones have a large appetite when they grow up. He ran out of his adoptive father's house and probably hasn't had a good meal for several days. Little stone, tell uncle. Where is your hometown? Uncle, I was abducted when I was very young. I can't remember where my hometown is and what it looks like. All I know is that we have parents and an older sister at home. We live in a high-rise building, and the city is uneven. There is a big river passing through the city. The word Chongqing immediately flashed in Fang Yongzhi's mind. So how did you lose it? In autumn, I went to my grandfather's house to play. There was a mountain behind my grandfather's house, and he took me to pick wild fruits on the mountain. That day, I was very happy and ran around. My grandfather picked me a red and sour wild fruit, with some sweetness. Later, I found out that it was mountain red, also known as hawthorn. I ran around, ran, and my grandfather disappeared. Later, a fat woman came over and gave me candy to eat, and then I didn't remember anything. When I woke up, I went to Hunan, later to my foster parents' house. These words have been held in Little Stone's heart for many years, and now he pours them out in one fell swoop. Only mothers are good in the world. Children with mothers are like treasures, and children without mothers are like grass. Whenever he heard this song, Fang Yongzhi couldn't help but burst into tears. Nowadays, a small stone is not as good as a grass, without a mother or a father. Fang Yongzhi took a deep breath. Have you ever looked for your parents? The little stone shook its head. Why not go find it? Uncle, I don't have any money. Besides, I don't know where to find it. Have you ever reported to the police? The little stone shook its head again. Nowadays, science is becoming more and more advanced, and there will always be ways to find it. What you need to do now is to pick yourself up, live a good life, and live your own life. When you see your parents, you will hold your chest open and go see them. Uncle believes that your parents must be waiting for you at home, and they are constantly looking for you. Which parent in the world doesn't hurt your child? Don't worry. Follow Uncle for now, and when everything stabilizes, Uncle and you will search for your biological parents together. Don't worry, with Uncle's food, you won't be hungry. So you can rest assured, right? Uncle, you are a good person, the best person I have ever seen. I must do things well, be a good child, let you rest assured, let my parents rest assured. Little Stone put down his chopsticks, clung his hands to the ground, and knelt down on both knees. Dang Dang couldn't help but knock his head twice in a row. Little Stone, what are you doing? Get up quickly. Fang Yongzhi quickly picked up the little stone and looked at it with a smile. He firmly believed that the little stone would keep his promise and become a promising person in the future. After dinner, the two of them returned to the guest house. This building has 3 floors in total and the conditions are rudimentary. Only the second floor has a public bathtub. Little Stone was disheveled, dressed in rags. Fang Yongzhi decided to take him to take a shower first. Coming to the bathtub, there aren't many people. The two took off their clothes and stood under the sprinkler to take a shower. Little Stone had nothing, and Fang Yongzhi took out his towel, soap, and shampoo to share with the two. It's extremely comfortable to pour hot water on your body. Fang Yongzhi closed his eyes and began to enjoy the pleasure of taking a shower. The fatigue of the past few days was quickly washed away by the hot water, and those painful experiences were gradually fading away. Living is not easy. Fang Yongzhi suddenly realized that this world is not so simple. People are not just living for themselves, but more for others, for their own face, and for their self-esteem. And for whom does little stone live? What should I do with this small stone? He pitied the child. Although they had only been together for a few hours, he had already fallen in love with the child. He is so smart and lovely, and there is some kind of fate between them. But once I take in the little stone, what will my future be like? Which woman would be willing to marry herself with a half-year-old child? But abandoning the small stone, I couldn't bear it in my heart. He is a kind-hearted and righteous person, and he is the most reluctant to see others suffer. Fate brings us thousands of miles to meet, but without fate, we do not know each other. This is fate, and Fang Yongzhi comforted himself in his heart. Hot water poured on his face, creating an illusion that Little Stone was his son and he was Little Stone's father. Chapter 8. Sports School. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Little Stone, come to Uncle's place, Uncle will rub your body. After washing for a while, his body had completely relaxed, and Fang Yongzhi greeted Little Stone. There is a bath master next to him, who costs 5 yuan each, but Fang Yongzhi cannot bear to part with it. He doesn't have much money with him, so the money needs to be used on the cutting edge. Uncle, let me rub it for you first. Little Stone's face was childish and innocent, very cute. You're still young and not strong enough. It's not too late to rub your uncle when you grow up. Growing up. Little Stone thought to himself, it seemed that his uncle was really going to take him in. His heart suddenly blossomed with joy, and a smile bloomed on his face. Fang Yongzhi walked up to Little Stone. This child is only 14 or 15 years old, and his body has not fully developed. He has almost no muscles and looks seriously lacking in nutrition. This child must have suffered a lot at his foster parents' house. Fang Yongzhi wants to give Little Stone more high-protein and high-calorie foods in the future to increase food calories and nutrition. Fang Yongzhi skillfully sprinkled soap on the towel, then wiped it on Little Stone's body with a towel. Then, he took out the towel he had brought with him and rubbed it all over from top to bottom, front to back, face to feet, chest to back. When Fang Yongzhi gave Little Stone a bath, it was as if he had seen himself in his youth. That year, at the age of 17, he came to Harbin with a university admission letter. There are a total of 8 people in the dormitory, except for Fang Yongzhi, who is a genuine rural resident. The other 5 people are mostly from the city, and the worst is also from the county town. My roommate from Beijing teased him, saying that his face looked like a vegetable. I don't know, I'm scared. Fang Yongzhi looked carefully at himself in the mirror, and then at others. It could be said that there was a clear distinction. The students from big cities all have rosy faces, while Fang Yongzhi's face is yellow and skinny, even inferior to the dishes. Fang Yongzhi was born in a rural area in eastern Hebei. His ancestors were originally a wealthy family, but by the time his grandfather was of his generation, his family began to decline. In 1948, during the land reform, my grandfather was designated as a landlord, and the days that followed became even more difficult. In the 1950s and 1960s, there were First Peoples communes and a great leap forward, followed by a nationwide 3-year natural disaster. The country was extremely short of food, and the Fang family already had many children. Coupled with poor family composition and low food quotas, the family's food supply was always insufficient. The older brothers and sisters ate sweet potato leaves and shared the saved food with their younger brothers. Even so, the family's food supply is always tight, and from time to time, it cannot be cooked. In 1964, my older brother went to the county work team and submitted an application for composition review. After being reviewed by the Village Poverty Association, the family composition was downgraded from a wealthy farmer to an upper-middle farmer. It was not until then that the status of the Fang family in the village improved, but the problem of eating remained a concern for their parents. One year, the county sports school recruited students, but many children were unwilling to go because they found the school life difficult, the amount of training was large, and their bodies couldn't bear it. Fang Yongzhi's parents secretly registered him in order to alleviate the burden of family life. The night before going to the sports school, Fang Yongzhi cried under the covers for a long time. He felt that his parents were too cruel and didn't feel sorry for him. After arriving at the sports school, he realized that he had come to the right place. At least there was food to eat at the school and he didn't go hungry. Training is tough, but he doesn't regret it. As long as he has food to eat, he is satisfied. The days in the sports school were difficult and happy, and time passed quickly because he couldn't make progress in sports. A few years later, he left the sports school and returned to high school to study. Fortunately, he was able to get into university through his own efforts. His career in sports school has strengthened his physical fitness and willpower. Although his nutrition cannot be compared to that of students in big cities, his face is still a vegetable, but his muscles are slowly growing. After arriving at university, his living conditions were completely improved and there were more sports facilities available. Therefore, he persisted in exercising every day, including running, horizontal bars, parallel bars, badminton, table tennis, volleyball, football, and ice skating. Over the course of 4 years, his physical fitness has greatly improved. The frail and emaciated boy has transformed into a muscular and robust man. The current little stone is exactly the same as the one who first came to the sports school before. He wants to increase little stone's nutrition, encourage him to exercise, and make him a strong person. Chapter 9. Adoptive Father. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fang Yongzhi patiently wiped the body of the small stone, just like a father taking care of his own son. If the kidnapping and trafficking of little stone was his misfortune, but now he is lucky because someone like his father gave him a bath, which Fang Yongzhi never dared to hope for in his lifetime. Fang Yongzhi lost his father from a young age, and fatherly love is very vague in his memory. Not enjoying fatherly love has always been his pain. He once fantasized about his father holding him in his arms with broad hands, then kissing his forehead with thick lips, and poking his little face with a green stubble. He also fantasized about riding on his father's neck like a horse, with his father carrying him and running around in the fields, playing and frolicking together in the mountains. Father's love, like a dream, has been lingering in his mind, but it will never come true. He originally thought that with the accumulation of time, the desire for fatherly love would fade or even disappear, but on the contrary, the older he got, the stronger his desire for fatherly love became. Fortunately, after meeting Lin, he finally found his long-lost father's love. Although there is still a distance from the father's love in his dream, he is already satisfied. His father-in-law is an old cadre who has participated in the Korean War. From the first day Fang Yongzhi stepped into Lin's house, his father-in-law and family gave him endless care. Every time he goes to his father-in-law's house, he always asks for warmth and comfort. When he eats, his father-in-law takes the initiative to pick up food for him. Fang Yongzhi was very clear in his heart that his father-in-law wanted him to relax and not feel unfamiliar and reserved in the new environment. His father-in-law clearly regarded him as his biological child. Like most rural children, Fang Yongzhi has many bad habits. He is carefree, careless, and careless, but his father-in-law does not dislike him at all. On the contrary, his father-in-law will constantly encourage him, guide him by example, and help Fang Yongzhi improve himself bit by bit. My father-in-law is so kind, so magnanimous, so understanding, and so tolerant. The most unforgettable thing for Fang Yongzhi is that one summer it was extremely hot. When his father-in-law went on a business trip to Beijing, he even went to Fang Yongzhi's hometown to visit his mother. There is no direct train from Beijing to Fang Yongzhi's hometown. After getting off the train from the county town, one has to transfer to a minibus and finally transfer to a bouncing car. It takes several twists and turns to reach the village, and the fatigue of the boat and car is imaginable. My father-in-law returned from a business trip without mentioning this matter at all. Later, when Fang Yongzhi and his mother were on the phone, his mother accidentally mentioned this matter. Fang Yongzhi held the earpiece, tears streaming down his face. At that moment, his heart was tightly wrapped in the love of his father-in-law. He lost his own father, but found another father who loved him. The power of role models is infinite. Under the influence of his father-in-law, Fang Yongzhi's temperament is constantly improving and changing. He has learned how to be a good person and a good father, just like his father-in-law, who is strict with himself and lenient with others. Now with little Stone, Fang Yongzhi vows to learn from his father-in-law and become a qualified father. This is Fang Yongzhi's first time taking a bath. He rubs it very slowly and finely. This seemingly ordinary bath was a baptism of his life and a sublimation of fatherly love. He suddenly felt a heavy burden on his shoulders. At night, Fang Yongzhi and little Stone lay in bed thinking about their respective worries. The little Stone tossed and turned on the bed like a pancake, making it difficult to fall asleep. For a teenager under the age of 15, he experiences much more pain than many of his peers. Over the years, he has been sold to many buyers and traveled many places, but has never received true love. He remembered the last time he was abducted and sold, when his foster father beat him up. It was not long after he was abducted and sold to his adoptive father's house. One day, his adoptive mother broke open a cabinet and stole the money inside, then framed him. "Say, did you steal this money?" The adoptive father viciously poked the little Stone's head with his finger and asked. "No, it's not." Little Stone refused to acknowledge it. "Okay, I don't admit it, right? Today I'm going to throw you into the river to feed the bastard. I'll see if you dare to speak up." After the foster father finished speaking, he went to the house and found a large woven bag, and without hesitation, he stuffed the small Stone inside. Little Stone struggled with all his might, but his strength was too weak to escape from his adoptive father's clutches. The adoptive father tied the mouth of the bag tightly, picked it up, and threw it into the yard. At this moment, it started pouring rain outside, and the water quickly seeped into the bag. Little Stone's clothes began to get wet, and in a moment they were soaked through. The little Stone curled up in the bag, with pitch black in front of him, as if swaying in the lake. He was like a drowning child splashing in the water a few times, exhausted, and then sinking step by step into the bottom of the lake. His life was in danger, and he was extremely afraid. I don't know how long it took for his foster father to release him from the bag. At that moment, he felt his heart die. That night, he couldn't fall asleep, and the terrifying scenes of the day still flashed in his mind. His heart was dripping with blood, and he shouted in his heart, "Dad, Mom, where are you? I miss you so much." Chapter 10. Yibiao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tonight, little Stone once again suffered from insomnia, not crying, not shouting, not wandering, but happiness and excitement. Tonight, he experienced the dignity of being a human for the first time, and being respected turned out to be so beautiful. He experienced for the first time what fatherly love is. Although he was once the apple of his biological parents' eye before the age of 4, the beauty of his childhood is too distant, and his memories have long been blurred. Nowadays, fatherly love is more real and meaningful. Happiness came so quickly and so suddenly that it caught him off guard. A few hours ago, he was still running for life and fighting for survival. A few hours ago, he was full of hostility and resentment towards this world, feeling confused about his future life. But now, he suddenly has a longing for a new life. If his biological parents cannot be found, he will treat Uncle Fang as his biological father. No, even if he finds his biological parents, he will still consider Uncle Fang as his biological father. If his biological parents gave him his first life and made him fortunate enough to come to this world, Uncle Fang gave him a second life, allowing him to experience the beauty of this world. Without Uncle Fang, he would be a useless person, a person abandoned by society, and a person of no value to society. People, the most precious thing is life, it only gives us once. A person's life should be spent in this way. When he looks back on the past, he does not regret wasting his time, nor is he ashamed of his mediocrity. Xiaoshi learned this saying in his junior high school textbook, and now he really wants to put it into practice. He will not disappoint Uncle Fang's teachings and upbringing, and become a useful person to society. That night, neither Fang Yongzhi nor Little Stone slept soundly. The next day, after breakfast, Fang Yongzhi and Little Stone came to a travel agency. Fang Yongzhi submitted 2 photos and ID cards, as well as travel expenses. These documents need to be submitted to Hailar, where the travel passport and visa are processed. He will then receive a disposable travel passport. Fang Yongzhi originally wanted to take Little Stone to Chita, but he didn't have Little Stone's household registration book and ID card, so he had to give up. Leaving the travel agency, Fang Yongzhi took Little Stone to the Manzhouli market for a walk and bought him a new outfit. Little Stone was overjoyed. This is his first time wearing new clothes after being abducted and sold. Before, he used to pick up clothes left over from his brothers and sisters at his foster parents' house. Next, Fang Yongzhi made a bold decision and gritted his teeth to buy 20 leather jackets. He heard that leather jackets are a bestseller in Russia and make a lot of money, which is also the true purpose of his trip. There are 2 types of leather jackets on the market, pigskin and sheepskin. Sheepskin leather is soft and has small pores, making it expensive. Pigskin leather is harder and has more obvious pores, but the price is much cheaper. Fang Yongzhi thought for a while and decided to buy pigskin. I heard that the common people in Russia are not well off, and the poor do not have so much attention to detail. Cheap and practical is the hard truth. The vendor is a middle-aged woman. When Fang Yongzhi paid, he felt a bit embarrassed and blushed like pig liver. He, like most people who go out, sewed a pocket on the side of his underwear, put most of the money into this pocket, and then fastened it with a safety pin. This money is safe, but it takes a lot of effort to pay. There's no way, life is tight, even a penny can save lives. It's right to keep a close eye on money. Fang Yongzhi turned his back, untied his belt, took out the money from his underwear pocket, and handed it to the vendor. The money was still warm with his body temperature. He brought a total of 3,000 yuan, and after buying a leather jacket, he had very little left. Most of this money was saved up by him and Lin after their marriage to buy a house, and now it happens to come in handy. 2 days passed quickly. On the 3rd day, I received my passport. The 4th day was the day of departure. Early in the morning, Fang Yongzhi told Xiaoshi not to run around and waited for him in the guest house. Farewell to Little Stone, Fang Yongzhi hurriedly rushed to the travel agency with 2 large snake skin bags in hand. At the entrance of the travel agency, there were already many people gathered in front of the door, each carrying big bags and small packages. In no time, a minibus drove over and people flocked to it. When it was Fang Yongzhi's turn, the car was already packed with packages of all sizes, and a wall was built on the hallway. Fang Yongzhi almost climbed from the package to his seat. This is a dilapidated Hongye brand minibus with 19 seats. Fang Yongzhi sits in the middle of the last row, his head pressed against the large glass window behind him. The tour guide is an optimistic and cheerful young man. He starts calling the roll and checks his passports one by one. After counting the number of people, he found that one person was missing. Yibiao. Is Yibiao here? No one responded. Tour guide, it's getting late. Shall we go? After a while, the driver urged. Wait a little longer, there's still someone who hasn't arrived. The minibus stopped in place, and after more than 10 minutes, Yibiao still didn't appear. Driver, don't wait. If you haven't come yet, you definitely won't come. The people in the car began to roar and shout impatiently. The driver started the car and slowly drove away from the hotel.